Well, I thank my good friend from Illinois for yielding and thank him for coordinating this time tonight when we truly do talk about our most important ally, a friend that we have and a good democratic friend in a very dangerous part of the world, in the Jewish state of Israel. And it was that visit was it was a privilege to be able to visit the country of Israel and to go with other colleagues and to go there with an open mind and to be able to sit down and to visit with the and talk face to face with the President of Israel, with the Prime Minister of Israel, to meet with the military, to go into the West Bank and sit down with the Prime Minister of the Palestinian Authority, and to look at the defense issues that Israel lives with each day and has since the beginning of that democratic nation, and to visit all the borders on all sides of Israel and to look out into whether it was Jordan or Syria or Lebanon, places where at one time or different times during their short history where missiles rained from and mortars came down on men, women, and children in that state of Israel. It's a country that is very familiar and lives every day with where defense is on their mind and a strong defense. And it was, in particular, it was striking to me when we were in the southern part of Israel and we were down and we were overlooking the Gaza Strip. And a place that, and all the borders being relatively peaceful right now, but at the Gaza Strip and just outside of the small farming community of Sderot, where we looked and where the people of Israel, the leaders of Israel, chose in an effort and a goodwill faith offer of peace, gave up what I thought looked like a pretty good piece of real estate that's set along the Mediterranean Sea, and that was the Gaza Strip. And they moved the citizens of Israel out of there and into relocate them in other places of Israel, and in hopes of obtaining a lasting peace and a long peace with the Palestinians. And in exchange, what they received was about 3,000 missiles and mortars that came raining down on them. And it was striking. I think the most striking conversation I had, and I know my good friend was there, was with a young mom of a 9-year-old, and she had grown up in that farming community. Her grandparents had lived there, her parents lived there, she lived her entire life there. And she lived through that time when those missiles rained. And she talked about how and we saw as we were driving into Sderot, bus stations that looked a little unusual, but that's because they were designed also as bomb shelters. And we saw the playground, which had a great piece of equipment sitting in it. My kids are grown now, but my boys would have loved it. It looked like a giant caterpillar, and it kind of weaved around. But to look closer, it actually was a bomb shelter for children that they would run to whenever that siren would sound that a missile was launched and would soon be landing. Now, from the time the siren sounds in Israel, they have about 20 seconds until that missile explodes. And that young mom, I think, put it so strikingly for me. Her words I hear over and over again in my mind is, imagine yourself, you're a parent, and you're driving down the road, and the whistle, that siren sounds, and you've got 20 seconds to get to safety. You've got 2 children. They're both strapped in car seats in the back seat. Which one do you pick? I think we take for granted our safety and security in this country. We certainly have had our attacks here. We've been relatively safe since 2001 because of the measures that were taken by President Bush and by the Congress at that point, and we have not experienced another attack on our soil in those 8 years. But we certainly have issues that I look forward to talking about further tonight in terms of future threats to not just to our country, but the country of Israel. And I thank my good friend.